Good morning, ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, children of all ages. Welcome back to our original time slot. It's Saturday morning. We're hanging out. We got the blanket fort. We got the spiked coffee. We've had our sugar cereal. And after these messages, we'll be right back.
That's right.
I kid. We don't have any sponsors yet. But if you'd like to be a sponsor, we are absolutely willing to do that. Because, I mean, we enjoy stuff and we will enjoy being paid to talk about it. So you can contact us at the @the email @theinpod@gmail.com or through Facebook if you want to sponsor.
I got a
Deal.
shameless
We'll read
plug
ads.
hat on right now, but
Right? Hey, you know what? You got a vested interest in that one, so that's
true.
cool.
Yeah, that's true.
What's been going on with you? How you been?
It's been good. Yeah, and we were just talking a little bit before we went live, but it's kind of like we're in a dead zone of sports here until next week. There's nothing going on unless you're a baseball fan, but
Right.
I don't want to
mean,
get
I don't
into
mind once in a while watching the baseball. I'm not a huge fan. However, this came up in a group chat with some other friends this week about specific major league parks. I've only seen one major league game. I saw the Houston Astros versus I think it was the Brewers in the second game of the season in 2001 down in Houston, Texas. It's the only baseball game I've been to. I have been to, it used to be called Safeco Field. It was called Safeco Field when I was there, but it was for a completely different event. That was a nice park. The question came up in the group, though. Are there any major league parks you'd like to visit and see a game? I have 3.
well, Fenway.
Yes.
That's one. I've been to 2 myself. I've been to is it still Safeco?
I don't think
Seattle?
it's still Safeco. I think they changed the name. If anybody out there knows, go ahead, because I'll ask the internet.
Clearly, we are massive baseball fans.
Oh, yes, absolutely. Right into it.
Yeah. The one in New York City, I don't know if it's still called
Yankee Stadium?
Yeah, Yankee Stadium.
Yankee Stadium?
Yankee Stadium, Fenway, and actually Miami.
Interesting.
Yeah.
See, I had Wrigley. So Chicago, Boston, New York. Miami's interesting. On the is it San Diego or is it San Francisco that backs onto the bay? I think it's San Francisco.
I don't know, actually.
And so if you get a good piece of the ball, you can put it into the ocean.
I'm trying to find
fans chime in.
I'm trying to find a picture for you to so just give me a sec here.
Yeah, no problem.
Just to show you why I want to go to Miami.
Okay. I mean, I love Miami. I go on a yearly basis. I haven't been to a baseball game. It's not in season when I'm down there because it's usually the end of January, early February.
Palm trees,
a couple times I was in October. They weren't playing. It's just the unfortunate of October baseball is most teams aren't playing. So yeah, other than that, okay, go.
I think they have a swimming pool in the park.
That makes a lot of sense.
I'm pretty sure they do, because from what I remember it. So just the fact that you can swim, you can be in a swimming pool. I'm sure those ticket prices are quite expensive. But yeah, it's just.
And also, I guess it's a pool, so it's a little different. It's not like sort of sitting in a hot tub with a bunch of randos, which is can get to be more of a stew.
Yeah. Well, I mean, you're gonna get a bunch of drunk people in there.
And hopefully they get out periodically. Because gross.
Yeah, it's just, I don't know. Miami, it's always sunny there. It's, there's palm trees outside. I'm pretty sure there's a swimming pool inside the park. Someone can quote me if it's wrong or tell me if it's wrong. Yeah, I don't know. And Miami's always a happy place because it's always sunny. So
yeah, it is. I like Miami. I mean, it rains for sure, but Eddie, it's humid.
You gotta deal with some high winds.
I'm a big fan of Miami. I think I don't think anybody that actually knows.
Isn't the Jericho Cruise leave for Miami every
year?
Every time, yeah.
Yep. So we get to hang out there. We normally go in a couple of days early and hang out. We've done the zoo, we've done South Beach a few times, we've done a bunch of other tourist stuff, and
Nice.
it's always a blast. Yeah, love Miami. It's just wonderful. The people are super friendly. The Uber drivers always have an interesting story to them, and it's really cool.
I bet.
Can't recommend Miami enough. Absolutely love it.
Plus, you may
Anyways,
get to run into Lionel Messi. I'm just saying.
I mean,
The opportunity
I'd
is
have to be
there.
standing on natural grass apparently, for that to
Yes,
happen.
that's
I
true.
I I'm probably not gonna run into him if I'm standing on artificial turf or concrete or something, so it's
No, I don't think he even walks on that stuff.
yeah, right?
Gets carried.
It's just it's got one of them sedan chairs and
Yeah.
a bunch of loincloth dudes dragging him around. Fair enough.
I mean, if he allowed it, it would happen, but I think he's too humble for that type of
Yeah, I think it's also technically called
attention.
slavery.
Well, he wouldn't, yeah.
Yeah. I don't know. I mean, he's got enough money to pay him, so I guess if you're getting paid, it's not slavery. But
Yeah.
how do you want to throw that on your resume? What have you been doing for the last 2 years? Oh, just carrying a dude.
I get paid well. Well, if you
I was a
pay them
wheel.
well and they volunteer for it, then it's really
I mean,
slavery.
hey, whatever you need to do to make a little money and get a little exercise at the same time,
I
right? It's
think
fantastic.
people underestimate how passionate and how feverish Messi fans are and what they're willing to do for their icon. Like
Um,
he's in deity
I
status
think
for a
he's
lot of people.
I
So,
think he's in that rarefied air, kind of like
yeah.
Taylor Swift is occupying right now.
Same thing. Yeah.
With it just way up there, and Michael Jackson back in the day had the same sort of thing. So yeah, I think he has hit that 1% of the 1% of the 1% who's just has a legion of undying, will do anything for you fans.
Yeah.
You know, I mean, they're your Brad Pitts and your George Clooney's um, and your Ozzy Osbournes, but then you get to Messi level, you get to Swift level, and you're even a smaller fraction of that,
Yeah.
right? Anyways,
Yeah.
so speaking of small fractions, there's a small fraction of athletes in the world that get to go to Paris this year.
Yep. Next
What are your
Friday.
general feelings on the Summer Olympics? How does that rank for you?
I don't think it's really anyone's really aware of it yet, honestly. Like just yesterday, I've started seeing commercials for the Paris Olympics, and I feel
Mhm,
like they're leaving it way too late. It's only 7 days, 6 days away. I think the
mhm.
opening ceremonies are next Friday, and I will guarantee you that most people probably aren't even aware that it's starting next Friday.
I was not until you mentioned it
Yeah,
the other day as
and
having
it's a
this as a topic.
4-year event, right? So, you know, um,
And it seems like we just had this, but I think that was a
yeah.
COVID delay, was it not?
Yeah, it would have been in 2020. Yeah, it would have been during COVID. So
I think they delayed it a year. I don't think they did the
no,
Olympics.
they delayed the World Cup. I think they
Okay.
did. I'm not sure actually. That's a good question. It's just I don't even remember the last Olympics, to be
Well,
honest with you.
see, that's
It's
the
such a
thing about
weird
Summer
year, right?
Olympics. It
So
seems like it's like I'm a summer person. I am much happier in the
yeah,
heat than I am in the rain or the cold. And it, for some reason, the Summer Olympics, after being a kid, it just sort of fell off for me. I mean, there was all sorts of stuff I used to enjoy watching, and then over time, just not so much. Right?
yeah.
It's just sort of passed. Like, the Winter Olympics, as Canadians, um, we we're kind of a little more invested just because it's a bit more of our natural habitat, I'd say.
We win more medals in the Winter Olympics as a Canadian
Yeah.
citizen, right?
Yeah,
So
there's
you're more
definitely that.
invested in watching it because in the media, it's more in like it's all over the place in the media because Canada's doing well. Canada never does well in the Summer Olympics. I do have a question for you though, and
Yes.
it's not really a question, but it's a maybe comment on this. I have my opinion of it, and this is one thing that has always irked me about the Olympics is there is no consistent rule set
Mhm.
for who's allowed to go to the Olympic based on the discipline. So,
Right.
for example, this year the basketball pros are going to the Olympics. So like your Steph Curry's, your Bronze, blah blah blah.
Mhm.
All the best guys are going to the
Back to the
Olympics to
dream team
compete.
era.
The dream team era, yes. In soccer, You can't have anyone over a certain age go to the Olympics, whether I can't remember if it's like 23 or 24. So any of the pros that are in their mid to late 20s or early 30s cannot go to the Olympics. In
Right.
boxing, if you're a professional boxer, you cannot go to the Olympics. It's all amateurs. So the rule set for each of the Olympics is different based on each discipline. And that's kind of always bothered me, right? It should be
Yeah.
bring the best in the world or just bring all the amateurs, you
Yes.
know? So I don't
Yep.
understand why it's different for each discipline, but every discipline has its own thing. And then to quickly talk about the Winter Olympics, hockey's been on and off with their pros. So
Hmm.
in some Olympics they invite the pros, and other Olympics they don't invite their pros. So I've been told for soccer reasons though, it's basically because the soccer workload is so high that it's
Hmm.
just another thing to put in that the pros just cannot do. Because the Euros ended last Friday
Hmm.
and the Premier League starts on August 16th, so they have a month
And
off,
and then
and
we had the
then
Copa America in on top of that too. So
yeah,
basically,
so
every uh, major country and every major soccer athlete has been playing,
pretty much,
right?
or at least invested in the
Now
team, you know.
I know the NHL used to pause during the Winter Olympics. I don't
Yeah,
think they've done that in a few years. So you really have to make a choice as to whether or not you're going to
yeah.
play for the team that's paying you a lot of money, or you're going to go play for your country. I
Well,
remember.
as an owner, you never want your player to play in anything outside of the team that you own, because there's a
Mhm.
potential for injury and risk of injury, right? You know,
Yeah,
somebody,
the Olympics are a little different. I think you're
yeah,
more likely to get injured in the NHL, at least the old school NHL, than you
yeah,
are at the Olympics. It's a lot more skill based. They don't really tolerate the physicality nearly as much. It's a very different game than what you see on the NHL, even though the NHL has evolved quite a bit to take a lot of that physicality out. I mean, there's still a lot of hitting, there's not as much fighting, but you don't even see that much hitting in the Olympic style,
yeah.
right? Basketball, remember back in the day when they first changed the rules to allow the NBA players to show up at the Olympics and what that team looked like? The American Dream Team was
It was
ridiculous.
ridiculous.
It
Yeah,
was almost to a point where it's like, just give them the gold medal and let everybody else play for second. 'Cause there's no way, because you had Jordan and Pippen and Ewing and just every major name in the sport, in the league, showed up to the Olympics, and every other country's like, "Well, fuck."
yeah,
And I mean, you had a few scatterings of, you know, guys that were in the NBA from other countries, but not much. The NBA is a very American dominated sort of, league, and it's you with hockey, you don't see that because it's from all over the world,
yeah.
and the Olympic hockey is just superstar on superstar on superstar scattered all over the globe and all over these teams,
But
and so it's a little bit more competitive.
don't you think that strictly from a marketing standpoint, and to order, you know, and the Olympics is an event, but it's also a brand, and they're also selling tickets, and you know,
Mhm.
there's merchandise to buy. Don't you think as a marketing strategy, you want to have the most pros possible involved in
Yes.
the Olympics, right? Because it's
Mhm.
just going to bring attention. The most watched Olympic event, I believe, in North America at least over the last couple decades, was the gold medal final between Canada and US in men's
Oh,
hockey
god,
in
yeah.
2010. Like in strict from a North American standpoint, I'm going to say that was, you know,
Yes.
Canada versus the US in the final of hockey. You know, it was
Yeah.
the most watched event here. Um, so I don't know. It's just, it always fascinated me how it's just so broken in terms of like who's allowed to go and who isn't, right?
Yeah,
So
it really is. It either
broken might be the
let
wrong
them
word, but
in
yeah,
or don't let them in. Like the Olympics, is it like your final tryout to go pro, or is it we're pros
yeah.
and we can come play too, right?
You
Like
know, the other thing
college
that,
athletes, you take a couple weeks off of college for the Winter Olympics and do that, great. Or, in the summer, it's not so much of a problem, obviously, but
yeah,
picking your collegiate NCAA top shelf, let's say wrestlers, because there's really not a lot for them to do once they've done that. Because most of these Olympic sports, it's like, okay, you got to the Olympics, cool.
Yeah.
You're on the box of Wheaties, cool. What are you going to do now?
Yeah, what are you going to do now? Yeah,
Yeah,
that's a good point actually, because some disciplines and some sports don't have like a high profile pro league, for example, right? Like, you know,
correct.
if you're a soccer player, you have infinite options to play in different Premier
Mhm.
Leagues across the world, right? But, you know, if you're a fencer, I'm sure there's pro fencing leagues, but I mean, when's the last time you watched the fencing league on TV,
Right?
on TSN or ESPN, right? You just don't see it very
Yeah,
often.
you
So
see it in like a spy movie or something
yeah,
like that. It's like, okay, swimmers, same deal.
yeah.
Most of the track and field athletes,
Well,
same deal.
they do have a world circuit that they go through, and they,
Yeah.
but the prestige is the Olympics. You
The
know, that's
prestige is
where,
the Olympics,
yeah,
and there's not a lot of money in it
no.
either. Like you get a very short window after the Olympics to capitalize.
Well,
Um,
unless you're the number one person, then you get a
not
lot of
not
attention.
necessarily. If you go back and you read
Yeah.
Kurt Angle's original book from the early 2000s, I think he was talking like, I trained my entire life for this. I won the Olympics with a broken freaking neck. I
And
had
he
about
became,
3 weeks worth of work lined up, doing speeches and talks and photo shoots,
and then
and
they
then
forget
everything
about
dried
you.
up. I didn't know what I was gonna do. I didn't, I tried sportscasting. I wasn't good at it. I tried the promotional tours. It didn't go so well. Now he got lucky. He did find a niche, but not a
And
lot of
what a
people
niche,
can do
man.
that.
Yeah,
Like,
he
look at
was,
Gable Stevenson, just got fired from WWE for various reasons that are unconfirmed. Some say it was he was not getting it as far as turning pro. Some say it was a bit of an attitude problem,
who
which
got fired?
could Gable Stevenson. He was another Olympian that in wrestling, and
I've never
it
heard of
doesn't
him.
work. You
Yeah.
you can't just transfer all these things. There's not a whole lot of other places to go. You might try the professional fight leagues like Bellator or UFC, but you look at these, like, what's a swimmer supposed to do?
Swim.
What's this world class shot putter
Yeah.
supposed to do? You know what I
Yeah.
mean? I mean,
Yeah,
even
well,
in
I mean,
cycling, you can go out and
I think with swimming you're okay. With cycling you're okay as well, because you have like the Tour de France and all these other
Mhm,
type of things. But like there's definitely some more obscure events, like for example, shot put or hammer throw or discus or javelin.
mhm,
Like, you know, it's not a sexy event, so to speak, you know, like the
right.
100-meter dashes or whatnot, you know.
Well, I
So
mean, some of them
it's
Greek statues, they're doing it naked, so that might
that's
help.
also true, yeah. Yeah. So Olympics, it's on in a week for 2 weeks,
Yep.
and you know, just I love the Olympics personally, because it's something that I can just keep on all day long, and
Mhm,
you know, there's enough going on where it just jumps around from event to
mhm.
event to event to event, so you're not forced to watch something, you know, that's boring for
Yep.
an hour or two, because it definitely jumps around. And it depends if you watch the Canadian or American feed, because then you're going to get different event highlights, right? Based
And,
on,
and for your position as a pub manager, that must be great. You can have 3 or 4 different TVs
sure.
with 3 or 4 different feeds going
Yep.
on, right? 3 or 4 different events.
We
So, I
have a
mean,
video wall. We have a video wall on one side of the pub that has 4 TVs connected into
mhm,
a cube, and
you
then you
got
can
Matrix, yep,
section them all into like four different channels if you want. So that, I mean, that's ideal, right? So
yep.
yeah.
So that's pretty rad. So let's get into it. Your top
Okay.
5. What do you like watching? I would love to
Okay.
say that, I sit down and watch every year this, but I don't. If I'm channel surfing and it's on, I'll check it out.
Yeah.
Channel surfing is really not a thing anymore, I guess, but I do
It's,
sort of
yeah, you're
flip
right. It's
over
not.
and see what's going on. When I, cruise past the guide and see, okay, well, what's happening in this event? Okay, let's check TSN2, TSN3, Sportsnet 4, yeah, because there's 400 sports channels now.
Yeah.
And then, like you said, the American feed. So then we go a little further down to the networks, the NBCs, the
Yeah.
ABCs, whoever's got it. So what if you're let's say you're back to channel surfing, you hit the Olympics, and you're going to stop. And you're going to watch for say a half hour. What's your number one? Which of your top five?
My number one. Are we starting with number one, or are we going
Oh,
number
you can start with
five?
wherever.
Okay, well, I'll start with number five. And hear me out on this. Hello, Josh.
Good
What's
morning,
up?
Josh.
Yeah.
What's going on, buddy? I guess it's lunchtime for you out there in North Carolina. Thanks for stopping by. Feel free to tell us your Olympic sports, what you want to be watching, what you channel surf. Seb, sorry I cut
Okay,
you off there.
that's
Go.
okay. Okay, my number five, and this is for reasons that you may think, and also that you may not think.
Mhm.
Beach volleyball.
I had that in one of my questions because
It's
and I dug it up. The last Olympics were Tokyo 2021 because they did delay it. There was a controversy, and I don't think it was at the Olympics because it seems a little too far back.
yeah,
But the beach volleyball uniforms,
yeah. Well,
uh,
that's a controversy in itself,
it,
right?
it
But
was because I can't remember. I think it was the American team showed up and they were wearing basically bike shorts, and the judges went, "That's not the uniform. That's not correct code." Well, no, we're playing volleyball. We're not giving out pole dances.
yeah,
Because they were very skimpy, and
the Olympic
I
Committee
didn't
deemed that they were too skimpy.
aesthetically have a problem with it. Morally, I definitely see where they're coming from. Um, so yeah, so go on with the
I
volleyball thing.
I just okay. So when you watch volleyball, I think it's 6-on-6 normally. I believe it's
Mhm,
6-on-6, and beach volleyball, two people in the sand are doing in the same court size, I believe, that a 6-on-6 team is doing.
mhm,
So just the sheer athleticism and
mhm.
diving around, and it's interesting. It's so much fun to watch. Um, I don't know, just beach volleyball. I always watch it whenever it's on. I always just leave it on. And I'm like, oh, cool. Both the men's and the women's. It's just, but
Yeah,
then I guess it just visually looks great as well. You're in the
I mean,
sand, water in the background. So
and we're
yeah,
from a generation whose first real exposure to this type of volleyball was Top Gun. So we
that's
got
true. Yeah,
Maverick, Goose, Iceman, and Slider out there, greased up and just ripped doing the volleyball, and it looked fun to play. And it does look fun to play. I'm too old to play it, and I was never really good at volleyball, but I can get behind that.
I mean,
Josh here dropping his top five:
if
flag
you've,
football,
go ahead.
fencing, swimming, basketball, boxing.
Nice.
Excellent choices. Excellent choices. I got
I
Yeah,
got one.
and
I got
then
one of
he's
those on
also
there.
saying the Winter Olympics bobsled is a guilty pleasure. Oh boy, you know what? We'll get to the Winter Olympics down the road, I'm sure.
Yeah.
But I was of that generation. If you've seen the movie Cool Runnings, I saw that story play out live,
Yep.
and
We're old
that
enough.
kept me a fan of bobsled because you just never. It's like, whoa,
Yeah.
that can happen. So it's just one of those things. Like we saw this shit on live TV, so now we are not turning it off in case it happens again.
Yeah.
But
Uh,
seeing it live, we thought they were dead.
I guess that there's a subconscious connection with me in beach volleyball because it brings me to like being on a beach, in
Mhm.
Mexico, and just margaritas and having a good time,
Yeah.
So I'm connected that way. And it's freaking hard, man. I don't know if anyone's ever tried
Oh,
to play beach volleyball, but it's very
well,
difficult to move around in the sand like
oh yeah,
that, and
absolutely.
it's
I mean,
not easy. Yeah.
those diving bumps that you can make and all that
Yeah.
stuff are a little bit easier to land, but at the same time, that moving around in the sand is awful. Have you ever tried to run?
Oh God.
Um, yeah, Josh is agreeing with us. Volleyball in the sand is so hard to run. All right.
I mean, I've played beach soccer as well, which is infinitely difficult as well. And here's a tip for anyone that wants to play beach soccer: wear socks, wear long socks, because when that sand sticks to the ball and you're kicking it with a bare foot, there's a lot of friction
Oh
that
yeah.
the
Yeah, that's like sandpaper, right? Like
it's
that.
not fun.
Yeah. Well, I hadn't a thought of that. Also, I would wear safety glasses because I would imagine that's getting in your eyes too.
Oh yeah, that's true.
Um, so I'm
All
gonna
right, go
start off.
ahead.
I'm gonna like I like the gymnastic events.
Yeah,
Um, and I couldn't really pick out one. This is like sort of my general thing. Like, show me. I like seeing how these dudes can just walk up to a pommel horse and just spin around and
it's
do all
crazy,
sorts of
isn't it?
crazy stuff. Do the rings, do the uneven parallel bars. I mean, that is crazy to me. Maybe it's the fact that I'm a huge superhero fan, so I'm like, okay, well, throw a red suit and horns on this dude, and it's Daredevil. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
I enjoy seeing it. It's just like the human body can do some wild stuff, and
Yeah.
like on those uneven bars when they come around and they deliberately smack their pelvis against one so they can whip back the other direction. I
Yeah.
mean, I get a bruise just watching it, but these guys and girls are just I guess they have a body callus to it. So it's just crazy.
Yeah,
Yeah.
gymnastics is on my list as well, so we'll just talk about it
Yeah.
here. I think the reason I like watching it too is because there's so much going on. You know, it's not just like you're watching one event. It hops from rings to
Mhm.
barbells to the horse to the vault to a floor routine, and there's so much going on and so much that you can pay attention to at one time. It's
Mhm.
exciting. Plus, it's kind of like the epitome of the perfect physique body, so to
Yes.
speak, because it's both strong and functional and quick and agile, right? So,
Yes.
I've always praised gymnast bodies they're some of the best specimens of athletics and mass and muscle mass.
Mhm.
While also being functional at the same time, both in the men's and the women's, like, it's incredible what they can do. I don't know if you've ever tried to do an iron cross when you were younger,
I
but that
see,
thing is
I had that in the back of my head to mention, and
holy
just letting you
smokes,
go,
man.
"Oh, yeah." Like, your kid, "Oh, I could do that." "Okay,
Yeah,
give her a shot." No, you can't. You can't
it's
do it.
not
It's
it's
that
not
is
good,
not
man.
easy.
Yeah,
For those of you that aren't familiar with that, the Iron Cross, so it's on the rings, the elevated rings. That's where you have your hands out to your sides, kinda like a Jesus Christ pose. You're making a T, and you're just tense and holding yourself up like that.
yeah.
My shoulder hurts just thinking about it, but,
Dude, that's basically holding up your entire body weight with your shoulders.
yes.
It's not easy. It's not
No,
easy at all. So,
no,
but
it
also when you see a gymnastics fail, that is very oof and cringeworthy.
Oh, because I mean, those are
There's a few of them, man. You're like, oh my
I
god.
I think a lot of people forget how unforgiving those little blue gym mats that they used to give us in
Yeah,
school really are. Sure, it's not hitting the hard gym floor, but it ain't much better. And when they come off a dismount and they miss it and they just face first or flat back it,
yeah.
oh my
It's
god, let alone if they
it's
just land
brutal.
a little bit wrong and we have to see one of those brutal breaks or dislocations of a knee or an ankle or a leg. It just oh, ah. And we've
Yeah,
seen it.
no,
We've seen people mess up their ankle and break their leg, blow out their knee on those dismounts just because it was just a fraction outside of what they were doing. I think there was a Simpsons episode, um, where they're like, "Oh, he landed the dismount, might have been injured," and just lands the dismount, and "Ah!" And that's awful and so harshly judged. If you're just a fraction off of landing perfectly, that one judge at the end of the table is gonna be a complete douche rag and just, "Oh, well, out of 10, 4," you
yeah,
know?
I have no idea how they judge those things too. Like, I'm just saying, like, that could be a 6 or a 9. I don't know. But there's a certain
Interesting number choice.
criteria. Yeah,
Um,
that's true, fair. But
but no,
he's
you're right, and I don't know how you judge some of these things, especially when you get into, like, the floor routines that are
yeah,
a lot of tumbling and dancing and the thing with the ribbons. I don't
the thing with the
understand
ribbons.
I don't understand how you judge that. Did you also notice that breakdancing, is part of this year's Olympics?
Really? I did not know that.
Yeah, it's
That's
called
amazing.
I was looking at the list of events, and it said it's breaking, and I'm like, "W w this seems barbaric, what's
That's
going on?" And it's breakdancing. I'm like,
that's awesome.
that I had a moment of a pause to go, "Really?" And I'm like, "No, you know what? That is actually a very athletic." Like, dancers don't get enough credit for being athletes.
Yeah, I mean, it's
So
yeah.
I think it's cool. However, are you gonna deduct points because you don't like their song? Um,
That's a good
I
point.
I don't understand how you like judging dance competitions. I had a couple of daughters that did dance for many years, and I just don't understand how you judge that consistently. Um, I don't get it.
Style points, I guess, difficulty. Like you need to get pros that know what they're doing to basically go, this is a difficult move. You know, like diving, for example, is structured on. There's like a value system on the difficulty of the dive that you're doing. So
Mhm.
maybe it's in the same sense, like, oh, that's a spin on the top of the head. That's more difficult than this other move,
Yeah.
I guess. But
Yeah, I
yeah,
don't
I'm
I
gonna watch it. That's interesting.
yeah,
Break
I that
dancing.
if that comes on, I'm definitely gonna check it
Yeah.
out. What else you got on your list, buddy?
Okay, so obviously I'm a big soccer fan, so
Mhm.
I'm definitely watching the soccer final. Most people
Yep.
probably won't, and it's interesting too because like a lot of the teams are all young, promising players. So just
Mhm.
watching the soccer event as a whole, you're seeing a lot of people that are 18, 19, 20, 21 that are just at the beginning of starting their career in soccer. So you know they have a lot to play for basically. You know,
Yeah, well, I mean,
I
it's like we were talking about earlier. This is a multi international TV.
yes.
You're young and you are hungry, and this is a
And
great way to get eyes on yourself.
that's
Make a
exactly the
name for
point.
yourself
They are
here.
hungry because
Yeah.
they every scout in the world is looking at them in every single
Mhm.
Premier League across the globe, and you know the Saudi League, everyone's looking at you, right? And you haven't really proven yourself yet. I mean, there's a handful of people that have, but it's like watching the World Juniors in hockey, which the
Yes.
Canadians will,
Or the NCAA. Like,
or the
these are
NCAA, March Madness, for example.
this
People,
is
this is their one shot to get noticed by everybody. So you know, come out and play, basically. So
mhm.
it's awesome. It's really fun to watch.
Yeah,
And it
as we
starts before the Olympic ceremonies, actually, because a lot of the group events,
yeah,
like women's soccer and men's soccer, have to start doing qualifying games like the week leading up to that.
yes.
You know,
It's they're
so
not short games, right? And then
90
you
minutes.
can't just you can't play
Yeah.
2 or 3 soccer games a day.
No,
I mean, obviously you can schedule them, but you can't have the same team play, every day, multiple times a day. It just doesn't work like that.
no, they
So
needed a
they
couple of days
absolutely need
off.
more
Yeah.
time,
Yeah.
right? And I think that's cool. That's also on my list, because
Nice.
just in the last couple of years, I'm starting to get a little more into it. I'm starting to understand the game more, as you called out last week. Still don't understand offsides. Call me Ted Lasso because I don't get it. But sooner or later I'll get her figured out. So yeah, that's we both agree there. That's something to watch. Another one on my list, team sport. I always enjoy watching rugby.
Yeah. Okay.
I mean, it's one of those games I don't see an awful lot of, and I kind of have to pick out the rules as I go and sort of figure it out. But I really enjoy watching the rugby sevens.
Yeah.
If it's on, I don't sit down and like specifically watch it or watch the entire game, but I enjoy it. Like it is a badass sport full of just badass dudes that are gonna go out there and do their thing, and I don't often get a chance to watch a lot of it, um,
Yeah. So
day to day.
there's a specific clarification that there's it's just rugby sevens in the Olympics, not
Yes.
actual rugby. And rugby sevens are short, quick, 7-on-7. I believe they're like 15 minutes or 14-minute matches. I think there's like two 7-minute halves or whatever, but it's like really
Mhm.
quick, high pace matches. I was
I like
had
teaser trailers.
Yeah, I had this conversation with somebody the other day who's not a sports person, but she was like, "You know what? I went to the rugby sevens that were in Vancouver like last year or the year before. I
Mhm.
can't remember when." She said, and goes, "It's actually super exciting to watch." I'm like, "Yeah,
Yeah,
it's fun because you got 14 minutes to win the game. It's not like you have 90 minutes and you can take your time developing it. Like you got to go.
yeah.
As soon as it's go time, it's like you go."
You
So,
start in an overtime situation.
pretty much. Yeah, that's
You
a good way
almost
of
start
putting it
in next
actually.
goal
Yeah.
wins, right? I mean, it's
Yeah.
not entirely true because it is a fast-paced game that, the score runs up relatively quickly. I mean, not as quick as, say, like a basketball game or something like that, but it's not like it's exactly next goal wins, but it's that mentality of We got to get these points. We got to get them now. We got to get them now. We got to get them now. And
Yeah.
that I dig it. It's just
Yeah,
a cool
it's
way
fun.
to take little bite-sized chunks and get a flavor for the game. Yeah, and
I
I
dig
got a
it.
lot of respect for how physical that is, and with a complete lack of padding. Um,
Yeah, a lot of people say that rugby players are you have to be in some phenomenal shape to be a rugby
yes.
player. Not only do you have to be physically strong because you're moving bodies and you're going in a combative one-on-one situation, well, 7-on-7, but
Yep.
some guys trying to tackle you and you're not trying not to get tackled. You also have to have insane cardio because
Yes,
you're
you do.
basically sprinting for the majority of your time there, right? So,
Yep, and
I
you gotta be willing to get physical
yeah,
because they are not fucking around. They're
yeah.
it is as hard hitting as, football proper well, pardon me, American Death Egg and hockey. The only difference is
Yeah.
in hockey, you get pads, but also in hockey, you're going like 60 miles an hour when you get moving on them skates.
Yeah,
Rugby, you're
there's
just
yeah.
out there. It's just you and the guy next to you and a bunch of cauliflower ears. Sometimes an odd number of them because those things will come off.
Yeah, they've been known to be scraped off. That's why a lot of them wear like tape around their head
Yes.
and like they tape their ears so it doesn't, if somebody's got Dumbo ears, they're taping it down to their head. Um, but yeah, it's just the fact that there is no padding and they're literally tackling you is
Yeah.
what does that say about the sport? To be fair though, I think in hockey and American football, wearing all that padding kind of fuels more of a reckless um thought in somebody's head because like, well, I got all this padding, I can just throw my full body weight. Whereas in
Yeah.
rugby, if you do that, if you're the person that's tackling, you could get injured as well. So you have
Yes.
to be more mindful on how you're properly tackling people in rugby. So I mean, but I'm not going to say accidents don't happen. You see people getting knocked out all the time, and the classic image of the rugby players, the mouth guard with blood all over his face
Yeah,
with the
right?
ball in his hand. So
Uh-huh,
yeah,
and covered in mud,
covered in mud.
right?
Yeah,
He looks like a scene out of Predator. It's
yeah,
and those boys are not to be joked with. They're not
yeah,
to be fooled with whatsoever.
yeah,
And they like to drink on the whole, let me tell you. There
yeah.
is nothing worse. I don't know if you've had it before, but a rugby team showing up after a game, that will change the outlook of a bar real quick.
Yeah,
What else
that's
you
what.
got on your list, buddy?
So I do really enjoy watching swimming, um,
Okay.
specifically the 50-meter races because they're short or 100-meter. I think they do 50-meter now as well too. I'm pretty sure. But the butterfly specifically, it's the one thing that I could never do as a swimmer. I mean, I
Mhm.
was not a great swimmer, but I can do everything other than the butterfly, and it's just so explosive. You look like a
Yes.
dolphin just going in and out
Yeah.
of the waves. And it's not. I don't know if anyone is a novice swimmer like I am, but it's a very difficult thing to do. So I was always slightly envious of people that were very fluid in it. But yeah, it's just you know they go in the water and then it's explosive and boom, it's the fastest event. So yeah,
Right,
but
and
just
that's it's
generally,
impressive
yeah,
too to see how quick they go. Doesn't matter what style it is, it's
yeah,
just like they're gone,
yeah,
right? Michael Phelps being retired now has kinda evened the playing field for everybody else because I think it was 2016, he basically just showed up, took all the medals, and went home.
yeah.
Um,
He's definitely the goat for sure.
yeah, and that is what it is. But yeah, swimming's fun to watch. It's like you said, I couldn't get the hang of the butterfly either. I did a lot of swimming, but I could never get the hang of the butterfly, and that pissed me off to the point where I started doing the diving thing, but I couldn't get the body control I needed for that, and it frustrated me, and I just gave up on the whole thing entirely.
Yeah,
Much like golf, I got easily frustrated and decided like the self anger and self loathing was just not worth it. Um,
golf is an
yeah.
interesting sport too. But yeah, the butterfly specifically, just because it's so explosive and just
Mhm.
there's they everything else is. I mean, I'm not going to say it's not technique because obviously it is technique. There's so much specific technique that goes into the butterfly. But for me, it just seems like the most chaotic, fastest race because they're just like going for it, right? Whereas like
Uh,
it's hard to look intense. Oh man, I'm probably gonna regret saying this, but it's really hard to look intense and chaotic when you're doing the breaststroke.
yes, it really is. It really is. There's not much you can. It's a very serene sort of style. So
Yeah, that to me seems like a casual swim around, right? So
yeah,
to make like a race out of it. I mean, I get it. Like obviously actually, you know what? That's another good race is the 4x100 where you do the four different swimming
styles.
strokes
Yeah.
styles. Yeah, that's interesting too because you have to be the jack of all trades to win that one, right? Because
Yes.
you could be a freestyle or crawl specialist, but your backstroke and breaststroke are deficient, so
Yeah.
you're going to lose in that event. So yeah,
Yeah. I
swimming
mean,
as
you
a
could be
whole.
weak on the butterfly and strong somewhere else. I think that is really key to finding an all round
Yeah.
best. Is like, okay, so you're really good at this. Try this one. Oh, I'm not so good at that one. Yeah. Well,
Well,
now the Argentinian guy's like, I
I'm
got this.
beating you.
Yeah. Right.
Yeah.
So and
It's
then
fun to watch also because, I work a lot of days obviously because I open the pub and most of the Olympics are not in North American time zones, so you're watching
mhm,
early mornings and it's good because you can just pay attention for a short amount of time and then go back to what you're doing and then pay attention. So you don't have to watch 2 hours worth of TV. Like you can just pay attention for 40 seconds to watch the race and then you're waiting for the next heat, so to speak. So
yeah. And
it's good.
that's
Yeah.
And that's one of those things about the Olympics too, is you really get a sense of I mean, it's an old Seinfeld joke. It's like, what happened? You came in last. It's like, well, the difference between first and last was this to this, and then this, like hundredths of a second. And most of the time, like these are foot races or swimming, and they're coming down to tenths and hundredths of a second. It's like, what
Oh yeah.
you like
It's
the speed of just the raw human body. Now, obviously, cycling is a little different, but this is not like measuring two NASCARs crossing the finish line at 200 miles an hour. This is a couple of dudes that have just ran around a track.
yeah.
Like that's crazy. Like the running events in particular, how fast these guys move. Um,
Yeah, we'll get to that in
And
a
that's
second.
that, like you said, that's not even 40
Yeah.
seconds. You're lucky if it's like 15 from start to finish,
Yeah.
right? So I got an interesting one up next here on
Okay.
my list that I enjoy watching. If I if I find it, I don't seek it out, but if I find it, it just fascinates me. Surfing.
Yeah, I don't know if it's in
I
in the Paris one. It might be, but I have seen surfing before on the Olympics. Oh yeah, it is.
Yes.
Yeah. It
And
is so fun to watch.
yeah, it really is, and this is one of those things. Now I'm sure it's a little less hazardous, being in Paris than if, say, Hawaii or Australia, because there's not as nearly as many predatory creatures in the water.
Well,
My
they're
question though is, and I haven't really looked it up, and I'm gonna right now, is exactly where are they holding the surfing competitions in Paris?
they're
Um,
not. They're holding it in Tahiti.
okay.
So they go to yeah, so that's an interesting point because I think surfing is the only event, if I'm not mistaken, in the Summer Olympics that's not actually held most of the time in the city that is hosting the Olympics. They have to go to a outside venue somewhere else in the world to host it. And so I'm just on the website right now on
Right.
the olympics.com and it's in Tahiti. Um Tihupo. I don't know where that is, but I
Okay.
probably butchered the pronunciation for that.
Oh, I
But yeah,
guarantee you did. Yeah, I would have done. Hey, don't feel bad. I'd have done the exact same thing. I'd have messed that up all over the place. So,
it's a
apologies to
fast.
anybody out there that's
Yeah.
offended. We are
Mhm.
Canadian, So,
Hey, it's a
yep.
fascinating point that you make about surfing because I just dropped my pencil. But it's contingent on nature, which is interesting, right?
Mm-hmm.
Because you could just get a bad wave, and what are you supposed to do with that? Right? I'm sure. Yeah, I'm not really sure how they do that though. Like, so they're out there, do they just wait until they feel that this wave is right and then they'll go and they get style points for that, right? But, you know, I think there's like a time limit to how long they can wait out there until they catch a wave. So you have to go at a certain
Yeah,
time
I guess if
point.
you gotta
But
catch a shit wave, you gotta catch a shit wave, right?
yeah.
It's
But like, I mean, what if the stars align for you and you just get this monstrous, glorious wave that just holds perfect form, and you're like, this is my chance to do well here, right? So it's interesting because it's definitely, I think, one of the sports that's most contingent on nature, being on your side, so to speak.
Sarah's friend of the
On the
show is
Commodore.
trying to remember how it worked in summer games on the Commodore 64. You know what?
Yeah,
Fair enough. And again, that comes down to one of those judging things. Much like we were talking about the dance and the gymnastics, do the judges like sort of, well, they caught a shit wave, but they made the most of it, or they caught a great wave and the wave really did more of the work for them. Like that's one of those things where being a judge has to be just grueling, and
yeah,
it leaves a lot of room for people to get mad,
yeah,
and a lot of the time, the whole thing, it all goes back to, the 80s, like that friggin' Russian judge is just brutal. But I mean,
yeah. He was a pretty stingy one.
like, well, yeah, and it's sometimes it's the French judge, and sometimes it's a Canadian judge, and sometimes you're like, okay, so these guys are going to be really brutal on any country that's not theirs. So yeah, the judging to that whole thing, but surfing, it just with the Sarah's posted links for us. Explain how the new Olympic sport is judged. Well, yeah, we'll have to look into that at some point and get back to it. I don't think I can open that from here. But she's figured it out. So thank you so much.
She
That was
just
really cool
virused your
for so
computer. I'm just kidding.
it is out there somewhere.
Yeah.
We'll have to look it up. What else you got, buddy?
So, in my mind, this is the granddaddy of all events. The reason I think this is one of the most watched events, it's also the shortest, is the 100-meter dash.
Yes.
It is the pinnacle of speed, and there's been so many insane moments through the Olympics. I think the most highlights that people probably will remember from the Olympics globally is from 100-meter dash events with
Mhm.
Usain Bolt and, we had Ben Johnson infamously win and then got his
Mhm.
medal revoked for being caught with the bad stuff.
Little extra gas
Little
in the tank on
go-go
that
juice,
one.
so to speak, right? So
Little high octane water.
yeah, but it's like it is so fun to watch, man, and it's 10 seconds or under 10 seconds now, right? But
Mhm.
it's just, there's so many iconic moments from watching the 100-meter dash, both in the men's and the women's. It is exciting to watch, man. And I know that whenever I have it on the pub, everyone stops to watch it for that specific moment of time.
Yeah.
It's universally liked, no one's ever gonna not like it. It's just it's quick. It's so quick. So yeah, that's something I always look forward to is the final for the 100-meter dash for sure. And concurrently as well, they do have the 4x100s, with the teams as well. So that's kind of goes hand in hand with that. So I'm just gonna say track those two events specifically. Um, there was I don't remember what it was. It might have been the London Olympics in 2012
Mhm.
where the three Jamaicans finished 1, 2, and 3. Usain Bolt, Powell, and then I can't remember the third guy. And then they did the 4x100, and you have like the first, second, and third finisher also on the same team.
Yeah, right?
You're like, well,
Like,
we know who's gonna
well,
win
I mean,
this one.
and that's going back to what we were talking about, that original NBA dream team coming into the Olympics.
Exactly. Yeah.
It's just like, you
Yeah.
know what? You guys just sit over there, wait for everybody else to finish. We're not even gonna no, just go collect your medals. Everybody else will meet you at the podium. We're just gonna do this for second place. So in grand fashion, Sarah has come in with some surfing knowledge.
There we go.
The scoring A judging panel consists of 5 judges who analyze performances. They score each wave on a scale of 1 to 10 with 2 decimal places for each wave. The judges' highest and lowest scores are discarded. The surfer is given the average of the 3 scores remaining. A surfer's 2 highest scoring waves are combined for an overall total. There is no limit to the number of waves a rider can catch. The duration of each heat can vary between 25 and 35 minutes depending on conditions. So there we go.
Okay. So the surfer can just keep going on wave after wave until he feels comfortable. I'm like, oh yeah, I did it with these two waves. That's interesting. Okay.
Yeah. Okay. So that's, I mean, that really, I'm not going to say eliminates the X factor of what Mother Nature is going to decide to do that day, but it at least helps even the playing field. So that's cool. Thank you for that, Sarah. Appreciate that.
You're not just banking on one wave. You have multiple chances to get your best scoring wave. That's good. I like that.
Yeah, and you have a time limit, so you just can't sit there and wait all day.
Yeah, you got to get it done at some point.
Absolutely.
Yeah. Do you have anything else there, Maddie?
I do. I have one more. Would you care to guess which it is? I bet you can.
Wrestling.
Yeah, it is. I do. I do enjoy watching the wrestling. I always have, because I saw a T-shirt for sale online the other day. It's like, oh, you throw balls? That's cool. I throw people, and it had a wrestler suplexing a dude, like a legitimate Olympic style, NCAA style wrestler. I'm like, that's, you know what? That makes a lot of sense. I do. I enjoy watching it. You don't often see these guys get to the Olympics and come out and do literally anything in the pro wrestling world. Obviously, there's one exception of Kurt Angle that is quite dominant. There have been a few others that have been to the Olympics and come out. Chad Gable didn't place nearly as high as Kurt, but you do see it happen. But it is just, it's one of those things. And I had judo on my list as well, because it is just one-on-one. Let's go. It's not obviously as severe as perhaps the original one-on-one combat in the Olympics were way back in ancient times, but I enjoy watching it. The scoring still confuses me because I don't get a chance to really get too deep into it. But I enjoy watching it. I do. It's just okay.
You can label judo and boxing and just as combat sports like that.
Oh yes, absolutely.
Yeah.
And I mean, Josh was saying earlier, boxing is one of his favorites to watch, and I don't disagree with that either, because I'm not sure what the rules for professional fighters are in that. If
it's all amateurs, I believe, in boxing.
Yeah,
you can't, once you turn pro, you can't go to the Olympics.
Yeah. So there you go. Like they weren't able to send Mike Tyson and Evander Holyfield, but
Floyd Mayweather and Lomachenko were Olympic. I don't know if they were champions, but they fought in the Olympics.
They came up from the pros, right? And that's leads into the point we were talking about earlier with the strictly amateurs of the soccer, which kind of sounds a little degrading, but it is. They're amateur athletes on their way up. No different than NCAA or college athletics. I'm going to get noticed. I'm going to come in here. I'm going to do everything I can to get noticed. And then somebody will pay me to do this. And boxing is one of the rare Olympic sports where if you do well in it and you get noticed, you can come out of there and make a lot of money.
Yeah, like
prize fighting is ridiculously well paying when you get to a certain level.
I have to assume if you get a gold medal in any of the weight classes in boxing, you're going to have agents and managers coming up to you that day saying, you should turn pro. I got a team that you can work with. We'll get you into high profile fights and we'll get you on HBO pay-per-view,
right?
Because that's a bankable thing. Gold medalists at the Paris Olympics, that's going to sell tickets for sure. Even if they don't even know who you are.
Right. And that's sometimes all you need. And, I would imagine it's not just boxing either. Like you probably have some MMA companies going, look, you did great in boxing. I mean, you're looking at the guys that do the wrestling and the judo. You got to believe MMA guys are looking at that, because that is the combat athletics. You come in with a certain pedigree. Okay, we'll give you a shot in this as well. Boxing is a little more pure, but it doesn't necessarily mean a boxer can't move into MMA, especially at a young age where they can turn around and learn more.
I wonder
So,
if that's ever gonna go in the Olympics, MMA. Probably
I
not because
I
it's too
heard
vicious, but yeah.
rumblings a few times.
That's
Yeah, I
interesting.
bet you. I would bet you that we would see it. Yeah,
Yeah.
I think we'll see it just because it's not. It's no obviously it's no longer the UFC of the original, single digit back in the 1990s where it was, yeah, there's just don't rip his balls off and don't gouge his eyes, but do whatever you need to do. Go in there and
Yeah.
basically
Mutilate
Mortal
him.
Kombat, right? Like it's just different styles,
Fatality.
very different styles, and it's like, yeah, whatever you need to do, just like I said, no gouging and no actually ripping something off the dude's body. It's a
Yeah,
lot
don't do
more
that.
regulated. There are weight classes, there are rules, so yeah.
I have so you did mention that breaking is the new sport, breakdancing.
Yep.
There's a couple of other interesting events that I just wanted to highlight as well.
Yeah,
Skateboarding is
let's go.
back. So I think Tokyo was the first time they did skateboarding, so it's back for another Olympics.
And
Uh,
that's one I could watch.
yeah,
It didn't quite crack my list, but if I scroll across the X Games, or back in the day, if I channel surfed across the X Games, I would absolutely watch skateboarding.
yeah.
I mean, you
Sorry, go ahead, keep going.
don't go ahead. I'll
Um,
use.
so and then also 3-on-3 basketball is back as well, which is an interesting format. Um, Basketball's been played pretty much since the early 1900s, but I don't know
Mhm,
if I can't remember the last time they had 3-on-3. So that's kind of like the equivalent of beach volleyball for volleyball is 3-on-3 basketball for, well, not really, but yeah.
mhm.
So that's interesting. There is a kayak cross debuts at the Paris Olympics. So I'm not even sure what that is. I'm gonna read it. It says right here, in kayak cross, 4 athletes race against each other from a ramp above the water. They traverse a course featuring up to 6 downstream gates and 2 upstream gates in a thrilling showdown. So this marks the first time in the Olympic that canoe slalom features an event in which athletes race against each other, not just the clock. Because previously the kayak races is just you against the clock, and whoever has the best time
Mhm.
wins. But you have 4 people in kayaks going down a river together, and you're trying to race to see who goes first. That's pretty exciting as well.
I feel like I've seen this
On TV
somewhere.
somewhere.
Yeah, on TV
Yeah.
somewhere. That sounds like fun to watch. The other one that I just noticed, and I'm not sure how new this is, sport climbing.
Yeah.
So
I
like a climbing wall. I'm interested to see how that goes.
Dude, have you seen how fast some of those people can climb a wall? Like,
No, I've never
oh
seen
my
this.
God.
However, I could only imagine if we're making an Olympic sport. I mean, this
Yeah.
is not gonna be the slow and plot your next move and go.
No, they're
So I
running. They're running up.
I believe that.
Yeah.
I absolutely believe that. And then, some classics like diving is always fun to watch.
Yeah. There is one other thing that you're probably not aware of, but I just looked it up earlier today, and these, if you can believe it, were events that were actually in the Olympics at one point, many
Oh, yeah.
years ago.
I
But
love these. Let's go.
this one, for obvious reasons, is just like, why would you ever have this? Plunge for distance. That's a
Yeah,
swimming
I heard
event.
that on the radio the other day. So explain that.
Okay. So the result was plunge for distance, in which competitors dove into a pool and then remained still for 1 minute or until their heads came to the surface. The person who glided the furthest won. Perhaps not surprisingly, only 5 competitors entered the events, all of whom were Americans. So it's just, I don't know. It's just, you're underwater and it's dangerous, isn't it? Because
Yeah, well,
you're
I
seeing
mean,
who can be underwater longer than the person beside you.
the thing is you're gonna lose that momentum. So
Yeah.
it's a low angle dive. It's not like you're coming off the board. You're coming off that low, I would assume diving platform like they use as the starting blocks for the swimming races.
Yeah.
And you're just diving and you're entering the water at a shallow angle and you're just seeing how far you
You
can go
just,
before you stop and surface.
yeah.
So I would imagine that these people have learned how to hold their breath. But yeah, that you just sort of sit there until you go as far as you can go and
I guess you eventually stop, probably,
you
right?
do.
Right.
And then that's when you end up surfacing. So that's
Yeah.
interesting. I mean, I don't know about you, but as a kid, I used to see how far we could go. We used to have competitions
Yeah,
around,
we did that.
whoever's swimming pool. Can you stay underwater from one end and get to the other without kicking and paddling? So yeah,
Yeah.
that's interesting. What else you got?
So this one was in the 1900 Paris Games. It's just convenient that it's Paris again. I can't even believe that this was a thing, but live pigeon shooting. Yes,
Wow. I
actual live pigeons were used.
They hadn't
So
figured out skeet yet, eh?
no, so competitors had to shoot as many birds as possible. After missing two in a row, the shooter would be eliminated. So uh,
Duck hunt for
the
money.
field the field where the event took place quickly turned gruesome as it became littered with dead and injured pigeons. Nearly 300 birds were ultimately killed. So I can see why they put a stop to that. But this is 1900 when they had this event. This is the
Mm-hmm.
only time and
Mm-hmm.
last time, but there's just some
Mistakes were made.
mistakes were made. Yes.
We
So
weren't as big on animal cruelty back then. Although, if you've ever been into some of the gnarlier areas of any major city, we can we can spare a few pigeons. Um, yeah, that's wow. That cleanup must have been awful. Also,
yeah.
quick question: what was for dinner that night?
Well, there you go.
Yeah, right. What else you got
Yeah.
on that list, buddy?
Okay, so this is apparently a thing. I don't even I haven't even researched it, but pistol dueling. So that was in 1912. They weren't actually
Um,
firing at each other, which would be interesting, but they had to fire at mannequins dressed in frock coats, I guess, with
okay.
targets. So it's not that they were actually shooting against each other,
Yeah,
but
because what was The Quick and the Dead with Sharon Stone, Leonardo
oh
DiCaprio, and
yes,
Gene
that's a good movie,
Hackman,
by the way.
and I think Russell Crowe was also in that one, where it was a pistol dueling tournament, but it was in the Old West, and they were actually killing each other. So that was the immediate reaction I had when you said that. I'm like, oh, cool. So that movie was based on actual events. That's
Yeah.
that's fun. But okay, that makes a little more sense that they're going to use dummies. That would actually be kind of interesting in this day and age with the and I don't know if you've ever seen the show Forged in Fire, but they use those gel torsos with the
Yes.
with the
Yeah.
the fake organs and the fake, we hope, fake rib cages. I
They
think
make
that
like weapons and stuff and see how the weapons will deal
yes,
with yeah. Yeah,
and
it's
they
a good
use
show actually.
these gel torsos to simulate human flesh, and you
Yes.
can see through it, and you get the rib cage, and you got a couple of things in it. I think that pistol dueling thing might be interesting with those torsos.
Yeah, there's another one which I was trying to find.
It would also get you recruited by the CIA.
It's true.
Or
Um
MI6 or whoever, be like, cool, cool. I mean, there are firearms events still in the Olympics. I mean, the Winter Games still has the biathlon, which is rifles and skiing. There is shooting listed here,
yeah.
and there's a
Shooting is
lot of shooting actually.
yeah.
Skeet, trap, pistols, rifles, air rifle, three position. That's not necessarily a boring one to watch either. But okay,
No,
let's get back to your thing.
well, the only other one that they used to do, which I think they should actually think about bringing back, but I mean, it would be interesting. They used to do tug of war as well. So you had a team on each
Yeah.
side. So that would be interesting if they brought that back.
Except
But
it's a random draw from the entire country's team.
yeah, there you go.
So I
There you
mean,
go.
if you're real unlucky, all of your swimmers are going against the power lifters from the Ukraine or something like that. That would be interesting.
Yeah.
Just random draws, like, well, damn it, they're anchored by the guy that just won the deadlift.
Yeah. So there's some interesting ones. Is there any sport that you want that isn't in the Olympics
um,
that you would like? Why don't they do this? That you can
that's
think
a
of?
good question. I mean, yeah, sure. We that pistol duel thing now seems like a concept to me. Or
Well,
maybe even just yeah. I mean, we're just training mass murderers then, and just doing spy recruiting. But um, There's one that I thought was just the stupidest idea that I'd ever heard. Somebody said put pro wrestling in the Olympics. I mean, go fuck yourself.
That's
That was
not a
stupid. I mean,
yeah.
I'm a huge fan, as we all know, but that's dumb. Um,
Yeah, that's
no.
not I mean, it's a predetermined
Um,
outcome, right? It's not like how would you medal
yeah,
in that?
that would have to be based off of, again, artistic judging like dancing, and I just thought that was the absolute dumbest thing I'd ever heard. I don't remember who said it because
Yeah.
I get the drink package and I was not on dry land. I will let you assume where I heard that particular tidbit of awesomeness. Um, I don't know. Like, it seems like
Yeah.
auto racing could be in there, but it also doesn't seem right for it. You
Yeah.
know what I mean? Um,
It's yeah, I don't know how you would do auto racing though, because you need to get like a separate.
yeah, but again, it doesn't seem right.
So
I can't think. I'm looking at this whole list of stuff. Archery is always a classic too to watch, and then you get into some of these, and they're just broken down into completely different um, sort of classifications, like the shooting, like the weightlifting, like the track and field.
yeah, there is. I mean, I was doing a little bit of reading earlier, and there is one I'm surprised is not an Olympic sport, and that would be squash.
Okay,
Because like badminton, tennis, they're all Olympic sports, but squash
yeah.
is not, and that is a very popular game. Like there's millions and millions of people that play squash, right? I'm
You
not
know
sure if
what? There's
racquetball is in there instead of squash, but
um, no, I don't see it, but you're
yeah,
right. And I don't wanna say pickleball, but cricket's not in the Olympic list either. Those
no,
games can get freaking long, though,
yeah, you'd have to
so
have
I
a separate
understand
rule
that.
set for the.
Baseball is not an Olympic sport, which
It-
also seems weird. However, because it is the Summer Olympics, that's gonna go back to do you sacrifice, your professional standing, or do owners sacrifice their best players to go win these gold medals? Um, so that brings that whole thing up. Actually, you know what? It's played in a bunch of countries. Highlight. That would be cool to see.
yeah.
I
What
don't know
about
if you.
dodgeball?
Yes, I'm in. Let's do this. Dodgeball. Olympic
If you can
dodgeball.
dodge a
Absolutely.
wrench, you can.
Dodge a ball.
uh, there's a couple. There's two other ones that people brought up as well: darts and bowling. Like I could,
Um,
but to me, like, well, darts more than bowling is like it is a sport, I guess, but it's a pub sport, you know?
yeah. I mean, I much like golf, I'd classify it more as a game, but I can definitely
Yeah.
see why you could do that. I mean, it does make the sports channels in off seasons, and it's
Ooh,
can
I
be
got a good one.
fun to watch.
I got
Um,
a good one.
yeah,
What about ultimate? Like
you're
the
gonna have to
frisbee, the frisbee,
ultimate frisbee. Yeah,
ultimate frisbee, because
yeah.
it's basically rugby, kind of without tackling, but with a frisbee. So I could see that.
Yes, I realize dart's pretty skilled. I have many holes in many walls to put my name on that. It is very skilled. I'm not taking the skill away from it. It's
It's a
just
precision sport, is what it
it's
is.
precision. I don't. Yeah, I'd consider it more of a game personally, but it's got its qualities. I mean, I could definitely, if they were to add it, I wouldn't go, "Why?" I could definitely
Yeah, that's fair.
see, the argument for that. Bowling as well, same sort of
Interesting. Yeah.
category. I wouldn't argue with it. It'd just be like, "Okay, yeah, because I mean, it's not easy to get a 300 game,
Well, most people try their entire careers to get a 300 game
right?"
and don't. I was actually at a bowling. So I was for a year when I was in my early 20s. I was in a bowling league, like a
Yes,
beginner
I
bowling league.
remember.
Yeah, and then the league that played before us was like a semi-pro league or
Mhm.
whatever. Like these were like guys that could go on tours and play for big money. And I remember going one time, when you get there early, and one of the guys was in a perfect game scenario. He was like 8 frames in and had all strikes, and the entire bowling arena or bowling place was
Mhm.
standing around this lane because you're watching somebody bowl it. He didn't end up getting it. I think he screwed up on the ninth frame or something. But
Well, I mean, he's got everybody in the place staring
well,
at him
what
too.
do
It's
you
like,
expect, man? You're on a
well, no,
perfect game.
I get it. Like you're about to see something, but
Yeah,
sometimes you
dude, you
don't
want to see this, right?
want
Like,
to
yeah,
get in the guy's headspace by accident. It's like you
yeah,
don't ever say sweep in the playoffs either, right?
or a shutout.
Exactly. So it's like, holy shit, just don't look, but 2 lanes over, watch him go.
Yeah.
But then all of a sudden, if everybody's standing around, it's like, ah, hi, hi.
Hey,
It's kind of like the sports equivalent of a shy bladder. It's like, well, I can't do it if you're all looking at me.
yeah.
Um, so here's an interesting tidbit. Friend of the show, Sarah, is all over this today. The Olympic Charter indicates that in order to be accepted, a sport must be widely practiced by men in at least 75 countries and on 4 continents, and by women in no fewer than 40 countries on 3 continents.
Well, I feel like everyone plays darts or bowls.
Mm-hmm. Darts
If
for
you
sure.
if you have a pub,
I don't
you're
know how
playing
popular
darts.
bowling is outside of North America.
Yeah, that's
That's
fair.
an interesting question. Hmm.
I'm sure they have bowling alleys in other
They
countries.
must.
They have to. Yeah,
Or are we just so North American that we can't you've traveled to
maybe.
more spots around the world than I have. Have you ever seen a bowling alley in Poland?
Well, I've never looked for it. There was a bowling alley on the cruise ship that we were in the
Yes?
Mediterranean, so that went. So technically, we brought a movable bowling alley
Mhm.
to Spain, Italy, and France.
Yes. I mean, there is one on the cruise we go to as well. I think most
Yeah,
cruise ships have that because I mean, shuffleboard is
yeah.
up there. You get games all over, but there's usually a bowling alley in there somewhere. So I think
I've never
yeah,
actually
that's an
seeked it out
interesting
though.
question.
Yeah,
Um, I know you have some family back there. Maybe fire off an email or something. Say, hey, yo,
yeah.
bowl.
I don't know the last time my dad went bowling, but that's fine.
But I mean, at least they could, like, you know what? Yeah, I've
Yeah,
never seen an alley, or yeah, dummy, it's around the corner. Like, you know what I mean? That's an interesting question, but it definitely explains why something like highlight
yeah.
is not there because it's a smaller sport, but it is cool. And if you guys haven't ever seen that, it's JAIL AI, 2 words, I believe, and it's kinda like racquetball, except you have this giant wicker hook, and you are
It's
whipping
it.
these
Yeah,
balls, and they're going hundreds of miles an hour.
yeah.
Like,
It's intense, man. That
it
ball
is
gets
intense,
whipped
it
so
is
hard.
dangerous, and
Yeah, don't get
the
hit with a
few
ball.
times I've caught it on TV, it is mesmerizing.
Yeah,
So, I mean, that's pretty cool. Well, it doesn't look like we're gonna get to our top 5 films trilogies this week.
we can do that next week.
We can do it next week. So come back. We're going to figure this out. We're going to sit down and talk some more top 5 stuff
Yeah.
and just get into it. The Olympics was a deeper pool than I expected.
Same. I
Uh,
didn't think we were gonna go on this long for Olympics, but again, apparently we had a lot to say. So
yeah. And pun
yeah.
intended, we did. And it's lots of questions. Thank you for the answers, Sarah, for looking some stuff up for that. That was fantastic. Our unofficial producer, fact checker, and number 1 fan. Thanks, Josh, for stopping by. Thanks everybody that stopped by and didn't comment. Feel free to jump in the conversation. Pull up a chair at the
Yes.
inn with Seb and myself, and go out and enjoy a nice summer day.
Yeah, you have a week before you can start watching the Olympics. So go out there and enjoy the heat. Or don't.
Yeah,
I'm not
yeah,
your
do
boss.
it. Hydrate, hydrate, and if it has a
Let's do
heartbeat,
that.
don't leave it in the car.
Correct.
Absolutely. Good afternoon.
Bye.